Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Well, as you can see, I'm late. Punctuality is important. How can I say that, having come late? Yeah, punctuality is important, but other things are important also. I'm late because I took some time. Chaitanya Charan Prabhu came to see me shortly before I was due to leave, and then just as I was to leave, Radhe Sham Prabhu came, so I spent some time talking to them because they're important devotees in our movement, inasmuch as they're preaching and their voice is being heard, it's effective. I was told by Shubhangi Radha Mataji that you're all in the corporate world. So in the corporate world there are some names that are well known and important. Bill Gates is very well known. And then in India their names are so well known that I just can't recall them now. Reliance, what's their name? The brothers? Ambani brothers, yeah. Then there's this Narayanam and Narayan Murthy in Bangalore. Infosys, is it? And then there's Wipro Prem Azad. Yeah, so they're important people, but they're not as important as Chaitanya Charan and Radhe Sham Prabhu, who superficially they appear to be more important in as much as they are very the names that we just spoke of, they're very influential in society. They're very well known. They're very much respected for what is considered their contributions to human society. But they're not as important because what they're contributing is not as important. Even though the leaders of our Krishna conscious movement, they're not very well known in the broader society, but because what they're giving is of actual substance, and what all the others are giving is simply yatha bhaso yatha tamaha. It's simply a reflection in the darkness. It's Maya. Therefore, those who are preaching Krishna conscious, their importance is far more than that of the so-called great people of this world, and it is simply symptomatic of the ignorance of the people of this world that they give more importance to the Shvavidvarahostra Karai, the Sangstuta Purusha Pashahu. Those who are like hogs, dogs, camels and asses, they praise persons who do not praise Krishna. So that is the unfortunate situation of the world, that great Acharya Srila Prabhupada came and better known are these glowworms. Like there are so many. This guy who speaks in it like a woman with a beard and giggles. It's very popular in the corporate sector. So-called guru. There are so many. Actually, to call them a glowworm is that's giving them some credit, because the glowworm gives some light, even though it's insignificant in comparison to the sun. But these people, they're not giving light. They're spreading more darkness. So people don't recognize who is Srila Prabhupada, what is his importance. They're so foolish and unfortunate. So, yes, anyway, I was saying I'm late because I was speaking at some length with Chaitanya Charan Prabhu and Radhe Shyam Prabhu. They have a very important service as preaching leaders, setting the tenor of this movement. So I spent some time talking with them. So punctuality is important, but some things may be put off if there are other things to do. So I came late because I was speaking to them. So, if you can also join the preaching movement of Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that's right. Of course you can do in any situation, but corporate life means you have to give your mind, body and soul to the corporation, who take the position of God to you. We'll look after you. We'll give you insurance, education for your children, free gym. We'll give you all facilities, but you have to give us your soul. Day, night, you have to work. And so you fully surrender to the corporation, and the corporation, whatever little time you have left, you can get a few minutes in the gym because we want you to be healthy, so you can work like an ass for us. So you can also preach, but you don't have much time or facility for preaching. And also, what are you going to preach? Become another. Add to your ass life the chanting of Hare Krishna. It may appeal to other asses somewhat, but mostly asses are interested. They're not interested in higher principles. So if you can come out of this ass race or rat race and actually do good to human society by spreading the teachings of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that will be, if you can listen, it's more important than taking photos. So we can actually do good to ourselves and to human society by preaching the message of Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada himself sometimes said that my guru ordered me to preach. I waited so many years. That was my mistake. Of course, we understand Krishna has his plan. What Prabhupada did in those 12 years that he was preaching before that, but his mission actually began to take root. We can say 66 to 77, practically 11 years, his mission took solid root. He was preaching full time even before that. But in that time, what he did is incomparable in the history of the world. But then we could say if he had spent more time, of course this is all, like I say, hypothetical, but I'm just taking this up because Srila Prabhupada himself said, I should have done so immediately. I should have immediately come, but I was thinking I have my wife and children, how can I leave? But it's a fact that in old age that it's very difficult. Few years ago there was a big court case in England concerning our movement. So there was a lawyer, leading lawyer, British lawyer employed by the devotees, and to give him some understanding of our movement, they gave him a copy of Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, and he read it, and he came back to Shivaram Maharaj, who was the GBC in England at the time, and he said, he was bold enough, of course lawyers are bold, he was bold enough to say to Shivaram Maharaj that none of you understand what he did. How can he say? Who's he to say that? He said, none of you can understand. And I said, well, why not? Because you are not old. He was old. He was an old man. He said, you cannot understand what it means to undertake such a great endeavor in old age. Vardhaka ekon pancharoga hata. This Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, in old age I'm beset by 5 different kinds of disease. It becomes so much more difficult to do anything in old age. So Prabhupada often said that. He said in one lecture that you're all young men. You should preach. What can I do? I'm just an old man. So in youth there's energy, but then the youthful energy is channeled into making money and pursuing the useless dream of trying to be happy in family life. It's an experiment that already failed billions of times. But people hoping against hope, they think I shall be happy. And in this way, just channeling their energy into that which is not actually in our self-interest, just building up an illusion. So instead of that, if some of you can, instead of giving heart and soul to some boss who simply wants to squeeze every last drop of blood out of you and gives you a good, so-called good salary for doing so, better to serve the Sankirtan mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. At least some of you could consider that. All right, I came late. I said what I had to say, and I guess I should go on to the next program. Oh, they're coming here now? What's the idea? The Sankirtan party will come here, and then we'll go back with them? What is going on? Please let us know. In the meantime, I heard the word question.
Maharaj, you were saying that there are many so-called important persons. There are many persons who are gaining importance in this world, though they are not deserving it. Like you named some of the Ambani brothers and all. And Prabhupada, who actually deserves importance, he could not gain it. So what we can do is so that Prabhupada really becomes an...
Abhi Josh Kushuk Tribhuvan. Prabhupada should be glorified. Distribute his books. Srila Prabhupada always said that the best way of preaching is to distribute his books. He put so much emphasis on distributing his books. He wrote in one purport that the main purpose of our Krishna conscious movement is to distribute these literatures. So, by distributing these literatures, people will gradually come to understand. When we say Prabhupada is important, what does that mean? I mean, like I was saying, someone's taking a photo. So yeah, you can stick Prabhupada's picture all over the place. Photo, that's all right. It's good if people recognize Prabhupada's photo. But Prabhupada was much more interested that people hear his message. What's important about Prabhupada? That he was born in Calcutta, that he was born in a day family, Kayasta family, what his mother's name was, what his father's name was, these things are not important. What's important is what he spoke. Hare Krishna, sab पड़ोसियों आए हैं कौन ये हमारे संकीर्तन पार्टी है ये हाँ they're all these are all the Sankirtan party.
They are all will accompany us to the hall.
Okay, so we should go. So the best thing is to distribute Prabhupada's books. Yeah.
Long back I read.
You have the books? Talking about the books?
Maharaj, this is all temple, they're staying in temple only. We have books actually in the vehicle.
That's all right. Yeah, you can bring.
Okay.
Then I can sell some of my books to you. I'm also writing books. Prabhupada told me to write books. He also wrote in one purport that the foremost duty of one in the renounced order of life is to make some literary contribution for the uplift of human society. So, I'm also writing books. And having come here, I would request all of you to take some of those books. Otherwise, why am I writing them? If no one takes them, they should be read also.
Everybody has Vikasa.
All right, but there are other books also. That's only the beginning. I was just mentioning this morning that not many people are taking this book, Glimpses of Traditional Indian Life, but it actually gives some perspective on part of Prabhupada's mission, which he said 50% of my work, he said, is not complete. The establishing of Varnashram. There is the alternative Prabhupada gave to being an ass in some company is to live on the land with the cows. Why be in ass consciousness? Be in cow consciousness. That was the alternative Prabhupada gave. He wanted that. Because what happens if you're working like an ass in some corporation, then you don't have time for practicing Krishna consciousness. It requires time. To perform sadhana requires time. But you don't have time. Corporate life means you don't have time. All the time goes in working for the company. And many of our initiated devotees nowadays, they hardly a day in their life they chant 16 good rounds. It's just, on the clicking on the way to work, clicking on the way back, and squeezing in a round or two in between making a report, and they don't have proper sadhana. So, considering that the purpose of life is God realization, then the modern way of life is not conducive to that. The modern way of life is conducive to forgetting Krishna in all respects. So this was an alternative Prabhupada gave. So that book is actually important. It's not just a series of nice anecdotes, but it's meant to be for people to base their lives on. There is another way of life, believe it or not. A short time ago, most of the people in India lived very simply on the land, and agriculture, they weren't selling their produce. They were, whatever they produced, they lived on. And their life was centered on God consciousness. Now the villages are full of politics and alcohol and illicit sex, and they lost their culture. Prabhupada wanted to revive that culture. That was in the 1970s. Still there was some sign of life. The condition of the social condition of India's villages has gone down a lot since then, unfortunately. The village people, they all want to come to the city. So these books, at least I consider them important because they are important. If Prabhupada said to write, then they should be important. So we'll go with the Sankirtan party, and I would request all of you, as you have kindly called me here, to take one of my books, and in between clicking your rounds and rushing off to the office, you could, and reading Prabhupada's books, you can read these books also. There isn't much time. I should go, actually. Like I say, I'm late. We're late for the other program. You can ask, but I have to go, so what should we do? Yeah, but they can escape that way. Now I got them here. You giving me a pen? Okay, that's good. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Very nice. Hare Krishna. What's this? Diary, is it?
Yoga devotees.
Oh, I see. Hare Krishna. Please bless me so that I can always be in KC and serve SSRK, SSGN and SP. YAS, Krishna is a nice name. It's nice. We can write Krishna consciousness. We don't have to write KC. We can say also, if we say KC, there's no benefit. If we say Krishna consciousness, we get the benefit more than performing millions of sacrifices, performing millions of years of austerities. It's good to say Krishna consciousness. Is it? They say like that? It sounds like a film star. Is it? Oh, is it? Is it? Yeah. So, everything should not be turned into an acronym. Better leave the name of Krishna without shortening. Take the extra 3 seconds to write the word Krishna consciousness instead of KC. Now I have to think SSRK, SS.